Riddle me this, motherlecker.
In this video I have a riddle for you. Alright, I'm somewhere on Earth. I walk 1 mile south, 1 mile west and 1 mile north. I end up exactly back where I started. Where am I? This puzzle has a long history in the tech industry. Microsoft would famously ask it as one of its technical brain teasers. Elon Musk, who co-founded PayPal and Tesla Motors, also admits this is one of his favorite riddles. So can you figure it out? Where did I start after I walk 1 mile south, 1 mile west and 1 mile north and ended up exactly back where I started? First of all, I should tell you there is a solution. In fact, there is more than one spot. That's a huge hint I'm gonna give you. So give this puzzle a try. When you're ready, continue watching the video and I'll explain what the solution is. Alright, so let's imagine the Earth as a perfect sphere. One spot, that's the answer, is the North Pole. If you're starting at the North Pole, when you go 1 mile south, then 1 mile west and finally 1 mile north, you will go on a triangular path and end up exactly back at the North Pole. So this is one answer to the puzzle. And this is what most people think about. In fact, there are many more answers to this puzzle. So let's think about our perfectly spherical Earth. Now let's think about some places near the South Pole. Imagine a circle that is exactly 1 mile around in circumference. And we're going to have this really close to the South Pole, so this is not drawn to scale obviously, but think about a circle that's exactly 1 mile around very near the South Pole. We'll call that circle C1. Now imagine starting exactly 1 mile north of this circle. So what would happen when you go 1 mile south? You're going to go from your starting point to the circle C1. When you go 1 mile west, you're going to go exactly 1 mile around the circle and come back to your starting point on the circle. And finally, when you go 1 mile north, you're going to end up back at your starting point. So this is another type of solution to this puzzle. You start 1 mile north of C1, you'll go down to C1 1 mile south, then you'll travel around the circle and then you'll go back up exactly to your starting point. In fact, there's an entire circle. This entire circle that's 1 mile north of C1 is all a set of possible answers. So this is an infinite number of points that you could start at that are 1 mile north of C1. So we already know that North Pole is an answer. This is an infinite number of answers that you can also add. But the puzzle gets more interesting. Now let's consider a circle that's exactly half mile around, so it's going to be very near the South Pole and it's exactly half mile around in circumference. We can think about exactly the same solution. If we are 1 mile north of this circle C1/2, we will go 1 mile south to the circle. Now when we go 1 mile west, we are going to traverse this circle exactly 2 times, and then we are going to go 1 mile north and end up back at the starting point. So think about how this works. You go 1 mile south towards C1/2, then when you go 1 mile west, you're going to go around the circle 2 times and then you're going to return 1 mile north exactly to where you started. And once again, there are an infinite number of these points because you can be anywhere along the circle that's 1 mile north of C1/2. So you could start anywhere that's 1 mile north of C1/2, and that's another infinite set of solutions. We can generalize this. Let's think about a circle that's 1 over n miles around and we want n to be a whole number, so we have 1/3, 1/4, etc. If you start 1 mile north of C1 over n, you're going to go 1 mile south to that circle, then you're going to go around the circle n times because the circle has a circumference of 1 over n, and then you're going to go 1 mile north and end up exactly where you started. Once again, there's an infinite number of solutions here because you can start anywhere along the circle that's 1 mile north of C1 over n, so got it, you can start anywhere that's 1 mile north of C1 over n where n is an integer, and that's the complete set of solutions. One answer is you could be at the North Pole, you'll trace out a triangular path. Another set of solutions is you can be 1 mile north of C1. So this is a circle that's exactly 1 mile in circumference and you can be anywhere on the circle that's 1 mile north of it. That's an infinite number of spots. You could also be 1 mile north of C1 over 2, so that's a circle with a circumference of 1 over 2. This is another infinite set of solutions, and you could really do this for C1 mile north of C1 over n, and of course this 1 over n can be true for any positive integer n. So you can be any 1 mile north of C1 over n. C1 over n has an infinite number of solutions, and 1 mile north of it there's also an infinite number of spots that you can start from. So the answer to this puzzle is there's 1 plus infinity times infinity. So it's a really cool brain teaser. You can ask it to people and almost no one gets to answer correct. Did you figure it out?
Riddle me this, mother lecker.